When I asked for help with my prescription costs, my dad said, "We all have to suffer sometimes." Then he bought my sister a spa retreat in Switzerland. I haven't answered their calls since. I never thought I'd be writing this story, but after months of going no contact with my family, I need to get this off my chest. This is about favoritism, betrayal, and how I finally found my backbone after 28 years of being the responsible daughter. My name is Sarah, and I'm the older of 2 daughters. My sister Emma is 3 years younger, and if you've ever known a golden child, you know Emma. She's always been the artistic one, the free spirit, the one who marches to the beat of her own drum, while I was expected to be practical, reliable, and understanding. Growing up, I watched my parents bend over backward to accommodate Emma's every whim. Piano lessons that lasted 2 weeks before she got bored? No problem. A photography phase that required a $1,000 camera she used exactly 4 times? Of course. Meanwhile, when I asked for help with college application fees, I was told money didn't grow on trees and I should get a job. So I did. I worked through high school, put myself through college with loans and scholarships, and landed a decent job as a financial analyst. I thought I'd proven myself. I thought maybe now, as adults, we could have an equal relationship with our parents. I was wrong. 18 months ago, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. If you don't know what that is, imagine your immune system deciding your joints are the enemy and launching a full-scale attack. Some days I can barely open a jar. Other days, I can't even get out of bed. At first, my doctor tried me on cheaper medications, methotrexate, sulfasalazine, hydroxychloroquine. When those failed to control my symptoms after 6 months of deteriorating joints and increasing pain, we moved to biological medications. The one that finally worked cost $3,200 per dose, taken monthly. My insurance negotiated rate brings it down to $800 per month out of pocket, still $9,600 a year. On a financial analyst's salary in a mid-sized city, that's a significant chunk of my income, but manageable if nothing goes wrong. I tried everything to reduce costs. I worked with patient advocacy groups and applied for manufacturer assistance programs. I appealed insurance decisions and researched biosimilar alternatives. For the first year after finding the right medication, I managed to cover my costs by cutting expenses ruthlessly. I moved to a smaller apartment, sold my car and took public transit, and lived on rice, beans, and whatever was on sale at the grocery store. The breaking point came 6 months ago when my prescription insurance company decided to require a new prior authorization for a medication I'd been taking successfully for 8 months. According to their letter, they needed my doctor to prove I'd failed on 3 other medications before they'd continue covering my current one, despite having all that documentation already in my file. The prior authorization process was supposed to take 2 weeks. It took 6 weeks. During that time, I had exactly 3 days of medication left, and I was facing over a month without treatment while they shuffled paperwork. A month of pain so intense I couldn't work, couldn't function, couldn't live. To bridge the gap, I needed to pay the full retail price of $3,200 for 1 month's supply. Even though insurance would eventually reimburse me, I didn't have $3,000 sitting around after a year of extreme budgeting. I swallowed my pride and called my dad. "Dad, I hate to ask this, but I'm in a really tough spot with my medication costs. The insurance company is being difficult, and I need to pay out of pocket for this month while they figure it out. It's $3,200, and I just don't have it. Could you possibly lend it to me? I'll pay you back as soon as the insurance approves it." The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. "Sarah," he finally said, his voice carrying that disappointed tone I knew so well. "You're 28 years old. You have a college degree and a good job. We all have to suffer sometimes. This is part of being an adult. You need to figure this out yourself." I felt like I'd been slapped. "Dad, this isn't about wanting a vacation or a new purse. This is my medication. Without it, I can't work. I can't function." "Then maybe you should have been more careful with your money," he replied. "Emma told us you went out to dinner last month. Maybe if you made better choices, you wouldn't be in this position." Emma. Of course she'd mentioned the one dinner I'd allowed myself in 3 months. A dinner that cost $32 and was my birthday present to myself. "Dad, that dinner cost less than what Emma spends on coffee in a week. I haven't bought new clothes in 2 years. I'm living on pasta and canned soup. I'm asking for help with medication I need to survive. We all have our challenges, Sarah. You'll figure it out. You always do." He hung up. I sat in my tiny apartment, staring at the phone, feeling more alone than I'd ever felt in my life. My own father had just told me my chronic illness was a choice I needed to deal with alone. I managed to scrape together the money by maxing out a credit card I'd been paying down for years. The interest rate was astronomical, but what choice did I have? I needed those pills to function. The next few weeks were a blur of pain, exhaustion, and financial anxiety. Even with the medication, the stress of the situation had triggered a flare-up. My joints ached constantly, and I could barely concentrate at work. I kept replaying Dad's words in my head, "We all have to suffer sometimes." The casual cruelty of it ate at me like acid. I started paying closer attention to things I'd previously ignored or rationalized away. Like how my parents' social media was filled with photos of Emma's latest artistic endeavors, her gallery showings, that sold maybe 2 pieces, her weekend trips to find inspiration. Meanwhile, the last time they posted about me was my college graduation 5 years ago. I noticed how family conversations always centered around Emma's needs, dreams, and struggles. When I'd mention work stress or health issues, the topic would somehow shift back to Emma within minutes. Speaking of stress, Emma's been having such a hard time with her art lately, Mom would say, completely ignoring whatever I'd just shared. I started keeping track of our family group chat messages. Over the course of 2 weeks, there were 47 messages about Emma's various concerns, her art not selling, her dating life, her need for a new laptop, her car making a weird noise, her apartment's heating issues. There were 3 messages about me, all asking when I'd be available to help Emma move some canvases or drive her somewhere. The pattern was so clear I couldn't believe I'd never seen it before. I was the family problem solver, the reliable one they called when something needed to be handled. Emma was the family treasure, the delicate flower they nurtured and protected. I thought about all the times I canceled my own plans to help Emma with some crisis. The time I'd used my vacation days to help her move apartments because she'd waited until the last minute to find movers. The time I'd lent her my car for just a few days that turned into 6 weeks because hers was in the shop and she couldn't afford the repair. I'd taken the bus to work for over a month, but when I'd finally asked for my car back, I was made to feel like I was being unreasonable. Emma needs it more right now, Mom had said. You're so much better at managing without a car than she is. Better at managing. That was the family euphemism for we expect you to handle it yourself while we take care of Emma. I remembered my college years, working 2 jobs while taking a full course load to minimize my loan debt, while Emma's college experience was fully funded and she was encouraged to focus on her studies and personal growth. When I'd struggled with anxiety during my junior year, I'd been told to push through it and stay strong. When Emma had similar issues her sophomore year, they'd hired her a private therapist and considered whether she should take a semester off to focus on her mental health. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. But it wasn't just anger, it was grief. Grief for the daughter I'd been, who'd tried so hard to earn love that was freely given to her sister. Grief for all the times I'd minimized my own needs because I'd been taught they mattered less. I started going to therapy. Dr. Martinez specialized in family dynamics and childhood trauma, and she helped me see patterns I've been blind to for decades. Tell me about a time when you felt truly celebrated by your parents, she said during our 3rd session. I thought and thought, but every example I came up with was really about my achievements, graduation, job promotions, buying my apartment. They were proud of what I'd accomplished, but I couldn't remember a time when they'd celebrated who I was as a person. Now tell me about times when Emma was celebrated. That was easy. Her first art show. Her pottery phase. The time she decided to go vegetarian. Her decision to travel through Europe after college. Her various relationships and breakups. Emma was celebrated for existing, for exploring, for being herself. Do you see the difference? Dr. Martinez asked gently. I did. I was valued for what I could do. Emma was valued for who she was. The breakthrough came during our 5th session when Dr. Martinez asked, "What do you think would happen if you stopped being the reliable daughter?" The question hit me like a physical blow. They'd be disappointed. They'd think I was being selfish or dramatic. And what if they did think that? Then they might. I couldn't finish the sentence. They might what, Sarah? They might stop loving me, I whispered. And do you think Emma worries about that? Do you think she's afraid that if she stops being the artistic, free-spirited daughter, your parents will stop loving her? I shook my head. Emma had never had to earn love. She'd always known it was unconditional. That's when I realized the prescription incident wasn't an isolated event. It was just the most egregious example of a lifetime pattern. I had been trained from childhood to believe that my needs were less important, my struggles less valid, my pain less worthy of attention and resources. I started documenting everything. Not out of spite, but out of a need to understand the full scope of what I was dealing with. I went through old photos, texts, emails. I talked to family friends who'd known us growing up. The picture that emerged was stark and undeniable. Birthdays, Emma's were always elaborate productions with themed parties, special trips, or expensive gifts. Mine were usually dinner at a restaurant and a practical gift like clothes or something for my apartment. Holidays, the family's schedule revolved around Emma's availability. When she dated someone in California, we'd moved Christmas dinner to accommodate their travel schedule. When I'd had to work late on Thanksgiving due to a client deadline, I was told to catch up with everyone later. Family vacations, Emma got to invite friends. I was expected to come alone because I was more adaptable and easier to plan around. Crisis support, when Emma had her wisdom teeth out, Mom took a week off work to take care of her. When I had my appendix removed, I got a text asking if I needed anything from the grocery store. The list went on and on. 28 years of being the afterthought while Emma was the main event. I showed some of this to my best friend from college, Jessica, during one of our monthly coffee dates. She read through my notes with growing horror. Sarah, she said finally, this is emotional abuse. Maybe not intentional, but this is a clear pattern of favoritism that's damaged your sense of self-worth. I'd been thinking the same thing but hadn't wanted to use such a strong term. Do you think I'm overreacting? Are you kidding me? You asked for help with medication you need to survive, and they said no. Then they spent 5 times that amount on a spa vacation for your sister. If that's not worth going no contact over, I don't know what is. Jessica had met my family several times over the years, and she'd always been polite but never particularly warm toward them. Now I understood why. I always thought there was something off about how they treated you, she admitted. Remember your graduation party? They spent the whole time talking about Emma's art show the following week. At your celebration dinner, you were the side character in your own story. I did remember. I'd felt vaguely hurt at the time but had pushed the feeling down, telling myself I was being selfish for wanting more attention on my special day. That conversation with Jessica was the final piece I needed. I wasn't overreacting. I wasn't being dramatic or ungrateful. I was finally, after 28 years, standing up for myself. 3 weeks later, Emma called me, bubbling with excitement. Sarah, you'll never guess what Mom and Dad did for me. They're sending me to this incredible wellness retreat in Switzerland. It's supposed to be life-changing. 8 weeks of spa treatments, meditation, gourmet organic food, and personal coaching with some guru who charges celebrities a fortune. Can you believe it? They said I seemed stressed about my art not selling and needed to realign my chakras or something. My blood ran cold. How much did that cost? Oh, I don't know exactly. The basic package was around $15,000, but they upgraded me to the luxury package because they said I deserved the best. With the upgrade and the extra 2 weeks I just added, I think it's around $22,000 total. But they said my mental health and artistic development are invaluable. Isn't that sweet? $22,000. I was paying credit card interest on the medication I needed to survive, while Emma got a luxury vacation to Switzerland because her finger paintings weren't selling on Etsy. That's great, Emma, I managed to choke out. I know, right? I leave next week. Oh, and get this, Dad said if I need even more time to find myself, they'll extend the trip again. They're the best parents ever. I hung up and threw my phone across the room. For the first time in my life, I truly understood what rage felt like. Not anger, not frustration, but pure, burning rage that made my hands shake and my vision blur. I'd spent my entire life being the good daughter, the responsible one, the one who never asked for anything. And when I finally needed help, real help, not a want but a medical necessity, I was told to figure it out myself. Meanwhile, Emma got a luxury vacation to Switzerland because she was feeling a little blue about her hobby not turning into a career. That night, I made a decision. After 18 months of struggling with this disease, a year of extreme financial sacrifice to afford my medication, and a lifetime of being the responsible daughter who never asked for anything, I was done. I didn't answer when Mom called to tell me about Emma's trip to Switzerland. I didn't respond to Dad's text asking if I wanted to have dinner that weekend. I didn't pick up when Emma called from Switzerland to tell me about the chocolate facials and how the alpine air was clearing her aura. A month passed. Then 2. The calls kept coming, but I let them all go to voicemail. Sarah, it's Mom. I don't understand why you're not calling us back. Are you okay? We're worried. Sarah, Dad here. This silent treatment is childish. Call us back. Sarah. It's Emma. Switzerland is amazing. I've learned so much about myself. The meditation instructor says I have an old soul. I'm staying an extra month because I'm having such breakthroughs. Call me back, I want to tell you everything. I deleted every voicemail without listening to the end. Month 3 brought more persistent calls and my first unexpected visitor. Mom showed up at my apartment on a Saturday morning, looking confused and hurt. Sarah, what is going on? We haven't heard from you in months. Are you sick? Are you in some kind of trouble? I almost laughed. Was I sick? Yes, Mom, I have an autoimmune disease that your husband dismissed as a character flaw when I asked for help. I'm fine, I said, not inviting her in. Then why won't you talk to us? Emma's been calling you from Switzerland. She's having such a wonderful experience, really finding herself. They extended her stay 2 more months. Dad said we couldn't put a price on her personal growth. 2 more months. The trip that started at $15,000 was now approaching $30,000, while I was still paying credit card interest on my medication crisis. I'm sure she is, I said. Sarah, you're scaring me. This isn't like you. You've always been our reliable girl, our steady one. What's wrong? Reliable. Steady. The good daughter who never caused problems, never asked for help, never needed anything. Nothing's wrong, Mom. I'm just busy. She left looking confused and worried, and I almost felt bad. Almost. During those first few months of silence, I threw myself into understanding what had happened to me. I read books about family systems, narcissistic parenting, and the scapegoat golden child dynamic. I devoured articles about parentification and emotional neglect. For the first time, I had words for what I'd experienced. I wasn't just the responsible daughter. I was the family scapegoat, trained from birth to manage my own needs while serving everyone else's. Emma wasn't just artistic and free-spirited. She was the golden child, protected from consequences and showered with resources. The more I learned, the more I understood how deeply this dynamic had shaped my entire life. I thought about my dating history, a string of relationships where I'd given everything and asked for nothing in return. I thought about my friendships, where I was always the one organizing, planning, remembering birthdays and checking in when people were struggling. I thought about my work life, where I'd taken on extra responsibilities without extra pay because I was so reliable. I'd been trained to be a giver, never a receiver. I'd learned that my value came from what I could provide, not from who I was as a person. I started making changes. Small ones at first. I stopped automatically saying yes to every request at work. I started asking friends to check in on me sometimes instead of always being the one reaching out. I bought myself flowers every Friday, something I'd never done before because it felt frivolous. Each change felt revolutionary and terrifying at the same time. I also started looking at my relationship with money differently. I'd always been frugal to the point of self-deprivation, while Emma had learned that resources were unlimited as long as you asked in the right way. I realized I'd been hoarding my money out of fear that no one would help me if I needed it, so I had to be prepared for everything myself. That fear had been proven right when I'd asked for help with my medication. I decided to start spending some money on myself, not recklessly, but intentionally. I bought a massage package to help with my arthritis pain. I upgraded my phone for the first time in 4 years. I got a cleaning service to come twice a month so I could rest on weekends instead of scrubbing floors while my joints ached. Each purchase felt like an act of rebellion. I could hear my father's voice in my head, "Is this really necessary? Are you being responsible with your money?" But for the first time, I pushed back against that voice. Yes, it was necessary. My comfort and well-being were necessary. I was learning to parent myself the way my parents had parented Emma, with kindness, generosity, and unconditional care. The hardest part was the loneliness. I'd lost my entire family of origin in one swift cut, and even though it was the right decision, it hurt. I missed the idea of having parents who cared about me. I missed the fantasy of a sister who saw me as an equal. I grieved for the family I'd never actually had but had always hoped we could become. Some nights, I'd catch myself reaching for my phone to call Mom when something good happened at work, or to text Emma when I saw something that reminded me of her. The impulse to share my life with them was still strong, even after months of recognizing how one-sided those relationships had always been. I started building a chosen family instead. Jessica became like a sister to me, someone who actually listened when I talked, who celebrated my successes, who offered support without making me feel guilty for needing it. I grew closer to my colleague Lisa, who also had an autoimmune condition, and understood the daily challenges in ways my biological family never had. I joined a book club at the local library and discovered I actually enjoyed socializing when I wasn't constantly worried about managing everyone else's needs and emotions. I started attending a weekly yoga class designed for people with chronic conditions, and found community with others who understood that some days just getting out of bed was an achievement. Slowly, I was building a life that centered my own needs and desires instead of everyone else's. But the hardest moments came when I'd see families that actually seemed to care for all their children equally. I'd watch parents at restaurants patiently listening to all their kids, not just favoring one. I'd see social media posts where siblings genuinely supported each other instead of competing for parental resources. Those moments made me grieve not just for what I'd lost, but for what I'd never had in the first place. Dr. Martinez helped me process this grief. "You're mourning the parents you needed and deserved," she said. "That's a profound loss, even if they're still alive. The parents who would have celebrated your achievements without immediately pivoting to Emma's needs. The parents who would have seen your request for medical help as a legitimate crisis deserving immediate attention. Those parents never existed, and it's okay to grieve them." I did grieve them. I cried for the little girl who'd learned to minimize her own needs. I cried for the teenager who'd worked 2 jobs while watching her sister get everything handed to her. I cried for the young adult who'd interpreted neglect as independence and wore it like a badge of honor. But I also started celebrating who I was becoming. For the first time in my life, I was putting myself first, and the world hadn't ended. In fact, it had gotten better. My arthritis symptoms improved when I wasn't constantly stressed about family dynamics. My work performance actually increased when I wasn't emotionally drained from managing everyone else's needs. My friendships deepened when I started being honest about my own struggles instead of always playing the role of the helper. I was learning that I was worthy of love and care just for being myself, not for what I could provide or how little trouble I caused. Month 4 brought a phone call I couldn't ignore, my boss calling to tell me my dad had contacted my workplace, claiming there was a family emergency and they needed to reach me urgently. I was mortified and furious. Contacting someone's workplace when they're clearly avoiding you crosses a major boundary. I had to explain to my supervisor that there was no emergency, just a family conflict, and assured her it wouldn't happen again. The embarrassment was excruciating. I was mortified. I called my dad immediately. How dare you contact my workplace, I said without preamble. Sarah. Thank God. We've been worried sick. You haven't answered our calls in months. Your mother thinks you might be having some kind of breakdown. I'm not having a breakdown. I just don't want to talk to you. Don't be ridiculous. We're your parents. Whatever silly thing you think we did, silly? The word came out as a shriek. You think this is about something silly? Sarah, calm down. You're being dramatic. If this is about that loan you asked for months ago, you figured it out, didn't you? You always do. That's what I mean, you don't really need help. You just think you do. While I was figuring it out, you spent $22,000 sending Emma to Switzerland for a spa vacation. Silence. That's completely different, he said finally. Emma was going through a difficult time. Her art career isn't taking off, and she was depressed. We saw an opportunity to help her find her path. And what about my path? What about me? You have a good job, Sarah. You're established. Emma is still finding herself. Emma is 25 years old with a college degree you paid for while I took out loans. She's not finding herself, she's avoiding responsibility, and you're enabling her. That's a terrible thing to say about your sister. And telling me to suffer while she gets luxury vacations worth more than half my annual salary isn't terrible? Emma's situation is different. She's sensitive, artistic. She needs different kinds of support. I need medication to function, Dad. Actual medication that keeps me able to work and live independently. But Emma's chakras are more important than my joint inflammation, apparently. You're twisting this around. We've always been proud of your independence. My independence that you forced on me because it was easier than treating both your daughters equally. I hung up. The calls stopped after that. I thought maybe they'd finally gotten the message. I was wrong. Month 5 brought Emma home from her extended Switzerland journey, and she showed up at my apartment unannounced on a Tuesday evening. I opened the door to find her tanned, glowing, and wearing clothes that probably cost more than my monthly medication budget. Sarah. Oh my God, I missed you so much. Why haven't you been answering anyone's calls? She pushed past me into my apartment like nothing had happened, like the last 5 months of silence were just a minor miscommunication. Switzerland was incredible, she continued, settling onto my second-hand couch like she owned the place. I learned so much about myself. Did you know I have abandonment issues stemming from being the younger sibling? My therapist there, she was amazing, trained in Switzerland and everything, she helped me understand that my art block was really about feeling overshadowed by your success. I stared at her. Overshadowed by my success? Well, yeah. You've always been a perfect daughter. Good grades, stable job, never causing problems. It's been hard living in your shadow. That's why Mom and Dad sent me to Switzerland, to help me find my own identity separate from being Sarah's little sister. The audacity was breathtaking. Emma, I said slowly, I asked Dad for help with my prescription costs 6 months ago. Do you know what he told me? She looked genuinely confused. No, what? He told me we all have to suffer sometimes and I needed to figure it out myself. Her face scrunched up in confusion. Well, that's different. You have insurance and a job. I was really struggling emotionally. I have an autoimmune disease that requires medication that costs $38,000 a year. But you figured it out, right? You always do. Mom and Dad are always talking about how proud they are that you're so independent and capable. I laughed. I actually laughed out loud, a bitter sound that made Emma flinch. Independent and capable. Do you know what that really means, Emma? It means they expect me to handle everything myself while they solve all your problems for you. That's not fair. I've had a really hard time. You've had a hard time? Emma, I've been eating rice and beans for months to afford my medication while you got a luxury vacation because your hobby isn't profitable yet. It's not a hobby, it's my calling. And it wasn't a vacation, it was therapeutic. $15,000 therapeutic while I went into debt to afford the medication I need to get out of bed in the morning. Emma's eyes filled with tears. It wasn't $15,000. It was more like, well, with the extensions and everything, probably closer to $30,000. But why are you being so mean? I thought you'd be happy for me. I've grown so much as a person. My Switzerland therapist says. I don't care what your Switzerland therapist says. I exploded. I don't care about your growth or your calling or your chakras. I care that when I needed help, real help, medical help, I was told to suffer, while you got handed $30,000 for a spa retreat. It wasn't a spa retreat. Fine, it was a luxury wellness resort with chocolate facials and alpine air. Is that better? Emma was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. I don't understand why you're angry at me. I didn't know about your prescription thing. Because nobody told you. Because my actual medical needs aren't worth discussing, but your emotional journey requires a family meeting and a massive financial investment. That's not my fault. You're right. It's not your fault. It's Mom and Dad's fault for treating us so differently that you don't even see it anymore. And it's my fault for enabling it for 28 years by being the good daughter who never complains. Emma wiped her eyes, smearing her makeup further. So what, you're just never going to talk to us again? You're going to throw away our family over money? This isn't about money, Emma. This is about the fact that when I needed help, I was told to suffer. When you felt sad, you got a luxury vacation worth more than most people's annual salaries. This is about 28 years of being expected to handle everything myself while watching you get handed everything you ask for. I don't get handed everything. I walked to my kitchen counter and grabbed a notebook where I'd been keeping track of things, not out of spite originally, just to understand my own feelings. College tuition, you, fully paid. Me, loans I'm still paying off. Car insurance as teenagers, you, fully covered until you were 23. Me, got a job at 16 to pay my own. Spring break trips in college, you went to Cabo, Europe, and Hawaii, all paid for. I worked extra shifts to afford a weekend camping trip with friends. Your art supplies and equipment over the years, easily $15,000. The amount they've contributed to my adult life, zero, until I asked for help with medication and was rejected. Emma stared at the notebook. You've been keeping a list? I've been trying to understand why I felt so hurt and angry. Turns out, it's because I've been treated like the hired help while you've been treated like the beloved daughter. That's not. I mean, they love us both. Do they? Or do they love the idea of having one daughter who's independent and doesn't need anything, and another daughter they can rescue and nurture? Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, in a small voice, what do you want me to do? Get back the Switzerland trip? I want you to acknowledge that it was unfair. I want you to see that while you were getting chakra massages, I was choosing between medication and food. I want you to understand that $30,000 could have covered my medication costs for over 3 years. I didn't know it was that bad. Because nobody cared enough to tell you. My struggles aren't worth mentioning, but your artistic blocks require international intervention. We sat in silence for several minutes. Then Emma asked, are you going to forgive them? Forgive us? I don't know, I said honestly. I don't know if I can go back to being the daughter who's expected to handle everything alone while watching you get everything handed to you. And I don't know if they're capable of seeing me as anything other than their low-maintenance child who doesn't really need support. Emma left that night without the happy reunion she'd expected. I didn't hear from any of them for 3 weeks. During those 3 weeks, I felt something I hadn't expected, relief. Not the crushing guilt I thought I'd feel, but genuine relief that I'd finally told someone in my family the truth about how their favoritism had affected me. I called Dr. Martinez and scheduled an emergency session. I told Emma everything, I said as soon as I sat down. About the prescription incident, about the years of favoritism, about how I felt like a second-class daughter my entire life. And you know what? I don't feel guilty about it. Dr. Martinez smiled. How do you feel? Free, I said, surprising myself. For the first time in my life, I told someone in my family exactly how their behavior affected me, and I didn't apologize for having feelings about it. I didn't minimize my own experience to make her feel better. I just told the truth. That's huge progress, Sarah. How did Emma respond? She cried and said she didn't know. Which is probably true, she's been so used to being the center of attention that she literally doesn't see how anyone else gets treated. But you know what? That's not my problem anymore. I told Dr. Martinez about Emma's comment about being overshadowed by my success and how that had perfectly illustrated the fundamental difference in how we'd been raised. Emma sees your achievements as a burden she has to overcome, Dr. Martinez observed. You see her privileges as proof that you don't matter as much. Both perspectives make sense given how your parents treated you differently. The difference is that I've had to earn every bit of recognition I've gotten, while she's been handed attention and resources just for existing. My success came from working twice as hard because I knew no one was going to catch me if I fell. We talked about Emma's Switzerland revelation that she had abandonment issues from being the younger sibling. I laughed out loud when I repeated it to Dr. Martinez. She got sent to Switzerland to address abandonment issues while I was literally abandoned when I asked for help with my medical needs. The irony is incredible. It sounds like Emma has been encouraged to explore and process every emotion, while you were expected to suppress yours and soldier on. That was exactly it. Emma had been raised to believe her feelings mattered tremendously and deserved immediate attention and resources. I'd been raised to believe my feelings were inconvenient complications that I should handle quietly and efficiently. After that session, I felt even more confident in my decision to maintain boundaries with my family. I wasn't cutting them off out of spite or as some kind of punishment. I was protecting myself from a dynamic that had damaged my sense of self-worth for nearly 3 decades. I started thinking about what reconciliation might look like, if it happened at all. It would require them to acknowledge the favoritism, to understand how it had affected me, and to commit to treating me differently going forward. It would require Emma to recognize her privileges and stop centering herself in every conversation about family dynamics. But mostly, it would require my parents to see me as their daughter, not as their low-maintenance child who didn't really need support. I wasn't sure any of them were capable of that level of self-reflection and change. Then Dad called. Not to apologize, but to tell me I was being unreasonable and hurting my mother. Your mother cries every day, he said. She doesn't understand what she did wrong. She didn't do anything wrong, I said. She did nothing. That's the problem. We raised you to be independent. We're proud of that. You forced independence on me while enabling Emma's dependence. There's a difference. We've always treated you girls fairly. Dad, in the last 5 years, how much money have you spent on Emma versus on me? That's not a fair question. Emma needed more help. Why? Because I have a job? Because I'm older? Because I don't cry when things don't go my way? Emma is more sensitive. Emma is more demanding, and you've rewarded that behavior her entire life. Sarah, this conversation is pointless. You're determined to be a victim. I'm determined to be treated like a daughter, not like an employee who's expected to handle everything independently while my sister gets treated like a beloved child who deserves every opportunity. He hung up on me. That was 3 months ago. They've stopped calling. I think they finally realized I'm serious about this boundary. My life is quieter now. I miss them sometimes, or rather, I miss the idea of them. I miss having parents who cared about my struggles as much as they cared about Emma's creative fulfillment. I miss having a sister who saw me as more than the reliable one who always figures things out. But I don't miss the constant feeling that I wasn't worth investing in. I don't miss being told to suffer while watching lavish resources poured into Emma's every emotional need. I've made new friends through a support group for people with chronic illnesses. People who understand that needing help isn't a character flaw. I've started dating someone who thinks my independence is admirable but doesn't expect me to handle everything alone. I got a promotion at work, and I used the raise to finally pay off that credit card debt from my medication crisis. Emma sent me a card 2 weeks ago. It was one of her paintings, actually quite good, with a note that said, "I'm sorry I never saw how hard things were for you. I'm working with a therapist here at home to understand my privilege better. I know this doesn't fix anything, but I wanted you to know I'm trying to see things more clearly." It's a start. Maybe. The fact that she's working with a therapist and specifically mentioned privilege shows some real growth. But I'm not ready to answer their calls yet. Maybe someday I will be, but only if they can acknowledge what happened and commit to treating me like a daughter who deserves support, not just praise for my independence. The thing is, I actually am independent and capable. But being capable doesn't mean I should be expected to handle everything alone. Being reliable doesn't mean my needs matter less than someone else's wants. Being the good daughter shouldn't be a punishment that means I get less love and support. I spent 28 years believing that if I was just good enough, reliable enough, independent enough, I'd earn equal treatment. I finally realized I already deserved it just by being their daughter. When I asked for help with my prescription costs, my dad said we all have to suffer sometimes. Then he bought my sister a spa retreat in Switzerland that cost nearly $30,000. I haven't answered their calls since, and I probably won't until they can explain to me why my suffering was character building while hers deserved a solution that cost more than half my annual salary. Some people think I'm being petty or holding a grudge. But this isn't about money or even about Emma's trip. This is about finally refusing to accept crumbs while watching someone else feast. This is about recognizing my own worth and refusing to settle for less than I deserve. I may be eating this Thanksgiving dinner alone, but for the first time in years, I'm not swallowing my feelings along with my food. And that feels like the best gift I could give myself. The phone is ringing again as I write this. It's Mom. I'm not going to answer, but I'm not angry anymore either. I'm just sad for all of us, for the family we could have been if they'd learned to see both their daughters clearly. Maybe someday they will. Maybe someday I'll be ready to try again. But until then, I'm learning to be my own family, and I'm a much better parent to myself than they ever were to me. Update: I know some people will ask, so I'll clarify a few things. Yes, I'm in therapy now, and it's helping. No, I don't think Emma is a bad person, she's a product of how she was raised, just like I am. Yes, I'd be open to reconciliation if they could acknowledge the favoritism and commit to change, but I'm not holding my breath. And for those asking about my medication situation, I'm managing better now. The promotion helped, and I found a patient advocacy program that's reduced my costs somewhat. I'm still paying more than I'd like, but I'm not going into debt anymore. The hardest part isn't even the money. It's the knowledge that when I needed them most, they weren't there. When Emma felt sad about her art not selling, they moved mountains. When I couldn't afford life-sustaining medication, I was told to suffer through it. That's the inequality I can't forgive yet. Maybe someday, but not today. Thanks for listening. Sometimes you just need to tell your story to people who don't know you, people who can see the situation without the history and complicated feelings. Your comments have helped me see that I'm not crazy, not ungrateful, not unreasonable. I'm just done accepting less than I deserve. And you know what? That feels pretty good.